Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my Takeout, my Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. Those of you who know me know that there's a joke in there somewhere. All things considerable about my journalistic past. What am I doing here? We're talking about things. This show is subtitled WDAAT. What does an Asian American think? So I tell you, because you probably aren't speaking to many Asian Americans, or not many Asian Americans are speaking out, honestly. I mean, some are, in a traditional sense, quiet, standard, towing the line. But here you get an Asian American opinion about things, unvarnished. And that's why it's breaking news. Hey, it's breaking news because it's an Asian American speaking on, coincidentally, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month, which that's what it became under Biden, but it's not. It's really still AAPI month, Asian American Pacific Islander month. When I worked in Congress with Congressman Norm Mineta, it was APA month or APIA month. We've gone through so many changes. It's our month, but recently I realized, and this really came home the other day when we had the shooting in Washington, D.C. of the two. They're peace-loving Jewish Americans who are meeting to try to, help what's going on in Gaza, and they get gunned down. It's a tragedy. But it was a reminder that May is also Jewish American Heritage Month. It is. I mean, we can't have it all, Asian Americans. It's not just it's also Mental Health Awareness Month. There's only 12 months. We got to share them. But it's funny that story, big story that night, and then you're not hearing as much about it. And we don't hear as much about it because there's so much news. There's so much air being sucked out of the news hole or the news space, and it's all because of Donald Trump, because everything he does is news, and he's like one of the first presidents who realizes everything he says becomes news. And all he has to do to make sure that he gets access is put something on Truth Social, put something on his social media, or just say, hey, I got a gaggle here, ask me some questions. Yeah, we don't want troublemakers here in our universities. That's why the international student thing is happening. Crazy, right? Oh, yeah, $3,000 iPhones. Yeah, well, tariffs. We're going to put tariffs on people. Everything the guy says is news, and that's why some things get short-shrifted. That really should be talked about. Anyway, hopefully we'll talk a little bit about the big, beautiful bill, which is big, ugly, and mean. Actually, small. It's really small and mean. And we'll try to talk big picture because that thing is going to go to the Senate, and it has a ways to go. We'll talk about other Trump ways, like the international student thing. George Floyd. It's been 5 years since then. And look, if you wanted to know if there was a physical sense of life changing in America, of things turning around in America, the George Floyd case, George Floyd +5, you can see the pendulum swing. And it's so funny. George Floyd is one reason why Donald Trump didn't get elected. And now 5 years later, Donald Trump is reelected, and we're going the other way. He's moving things the other way. So that bothers me. We're going to talk about Memorial Day, the weekend coming up. A big graduation at San Francisco State today. And to help me sort of decipher all this that we're going to try to talk about in the time that we have. Oh, we're also going to try to talk about South Africa, which is part of Trump ways. Trump ways is to say, hey, we need to import more white racists. That's why we need the Afrikaners here. That's why they get refugee status and everyone else doesn't. So to help me decipher all this is my cohort on Fridays, in particular, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, Professor Emeritus, San Francisco State University, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies. Here he is, friend of the show, Daniel Phil. How are you, Dan?
Good afternoon, sir. We're doing okay, given,
Yeah,
as you put it, the onslaught
yeah, it is an
of
offside.
of,
Yeah,
of Trumpness news.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's really horrible.
You know, people talk about the metaphor of flooding the zone. He's doing it with everything, but he's really he. Donald Trump is the fire hose of life. He just, it's just coming at you. How do you deal with it, Dan? How are people supposed to deal with this?
I look for the cliff notes. You go to USA Today and you just read the headlines page,
Yeah.
and then you go to your New York Times subscription
Mm.
and go for depth. And then if you really have time, you go to your Atlantic subscription
Yeah.
and go for even greater depth on specific subjects.
Yeah.
But that usually takes about a week or so after his Trumpiness has occupied 1,001% of the news.
See, now
So
you haven't even mentioned the old New Yorkers that keep stacking up that you can't read, you can't keep up with because
yeah, you have one of those stacks too. I do.
and
Yeah,
the New Yorker is, I think,
I get
because
wired too. I get wired.
well, see, because New Yorker is run by Remnick,
Right, right.
former newspaper guy. He's turned the New Yorker into um, a, a magazine that comments on the daily stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it is almost it's as indispensable as is the Atlantic Monthly in terms of the magazine side. The
Right.
newspaper side, I agree with you. The New York Times. I look at the Washington Post and the LA Times
LA
also.
Times, yeah. LA Times too.
But by time you get around, I mean, I was speaking. Okay, I was at a comedy club the other night, and I asked people, how many people here read a newspaper? How many people do you think raise their hands?
Out of a crowd of, let's say there was 100 people in there,
Yeah,
I
about
would I would say about 15 at most, 10,
ah,
15.
not even that. Not
Oh,
even
that's
that.
terrible.
But
That's terrible.
then I said, how many people read your iPhone? And then there were more people.
Okay.
But but they weren't really into the news. I said tonight, be on the lookout. They're going to pass a bill, and who knows what it's going to be. It's called Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, but it's small, it's mean, and very ugly and sadistic, and not very beautiful at all. And in fact, so I went home after the comedy club. I went back home, and yeah, they're trying to pass it in committee. They didn't that
They
night.
wanted to do it in the dead of night,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they couldn't say, it went 24 hours,
yeah. But they came back. They did it the next day.
That's right.
They did it the next day, and I think
And it
now,
squeaked
now,
by.
now it's not even in the news cycle because if you pass it at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. in the morning the next day, it barely gets into the news cycle because especially if you flood the zone and do other things that people have to comment
Yeah,
on.
that's
And
right.
so and so here's the only good thing about that is that I mean the big sadistic ugly bill goes after poor people, goes after people who can't afford it. It gives everything to the rich, and that's all. That's what you need to know now because things are apt to change once it passed. Now that it passed the House, it'll go to the Senate, and then that's where the things are going to really, as they say, become clear. If the Democrats rise up and fight it, or if the Republicans, say, yeah, we're the mean politicians. We're the mean swamp. And I think the biggest thing is that they're, it's like the '80s again, right? With in California when they took away benefits from poor, they took away benefits from the immigrants. They want to take it away from
Yeah, well,
people.
it started in the 70s with three strikes,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and then and that was a bellwether of what the right could get away with in California.
Yeah.
So, three strikes, also term limits,
Mm.
were major measures that were indicators. I felt they were indicators of what was to come in the '80s, and that was also the greater bellwether was the fact that Governor Reagan, the former Governor Reagan, was going to run successfully, right?
Mm.
He got the nomination, Republican Party, and it was only his second try. I mean, he made the kind of thing, the attempt, right, for primary in '76, and the only reason they did that was to get his name out there and get some recognition and test the field. But it was very clear, after Carter's win, that the Republicans needed somebody that was telegenic,
Yeah.
and he was the guy.
Yeah. And yet, even though you mentioned Reagan here, if Reagan was around now, most of this stuff wouldn't have been passed because it would have
No,
been considered too
no.
mean. It would have been anti-American.
Yeah, yeah,
First of all, the whole exploding the deficit, exploding the national debt, at the way that this big or
yeah. But
small.
it happened anyway. It happened under Reagan, both terms, and it
Yeah.
also happened under his successor, under
Yeah.
Bush one. And they did that. The reason it happened was because they tried to lower taxes for everybody,
Yeah.
and it wasn't necessarily favoritism to the top 0.5% as it is now.
Yeah.
And so this wouldn't have gotten by. And in point of fact, the reaction to the attempts at reducing taxes was the balanced budget,
Oh
okay,
yeah. Yeah.
campaign that caused Clinton to move strong towards the center. And
Yeah.
in my estimation, he moved over that center line to the right with things like workfare,
Yeah. And
right?
that's what the Republicans are banging on now. That hey, if you
Yeah.
want welfare and you're able, you got to work, and that's a
So it's
big.
it's now Medicaid fare,
Yeah,
right?
Medicaid fair. Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
this is the thing that people don't understand, that Medicaid is one thing, Medicare is another, and there are some cuts on Medicare.
Yes.
There's like $500 billion in cuts on Medicare,
Yes.
and if that happens, that now we're down the slippery slope where the untouchables, Medicare, Social Security, they suddenly you can pick around it, and you could destroy the integrity of it. And this is
Well,
now that
earlier you said earlier you said it's a mean bill, it's an ugly bill, and then you listed the poor, right, and the working class. This attack is against everybody, including even up to the upper middle class,
right,
because the level of taxes that they quote are saving, right, aren't sufficient to cover the losses of services and benefits that'll be wiped out in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Okay,
right,
so all of that's going to get shifted to the states, and so we're going to end up paying more for less. It's really a ridiculous situation. And I haven't heard anybody say that. I haven't heard anybody say just literally, you're going to get a lot less and you're going to pay more. And it's the costs are going to be excessive. Where I agree with you is the costs are going to be excessive
yeah.
for the poor and the working poor. Okay,
And the definition of what is poor and working poor,
that's right.
like 100,000 is working poor. Well, in some counties, yes.
Yeah, well, in San Francisco,
Yeah.
it's sure as hell. You can't afford. You could barely afford rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the crazy thing. I'm starting to feel it myself when I talk about these things here with you, and I write about these things. But you go to the grocery store. This is a good
Yeah.
checkup. You go to the grocery store and you blanch when you buy everything you want, and then they sell you how much, and then you say, "Oops, I think I put this back. I think I'll put that back."
I am seeing more people do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we don't need that many of the fake eggs and we're just not going to eat fake eggs. We're not going
The
to eat
eggs
eggs.
eggs are lower in price now, so
Yeah,
people aren't complaining about the eggs anymore.
but fake
Okay.
eggs, fake
Yeah,
eggs.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
At $8 a little carton,
yeah,
we'll just
yeah.
go with one, and then we'll just not have any kind of egg, fake or real. How about the fake meat? We
Oh
used
yeah.
I used to eat fake meat a lot more, say a couple years ago. Now it's gotten really good, and you don't have the same urge to cheat eating some meat because they make better fake chicken than real chicken. They make
Right,
and now with Beyond Meat they make better fake burger
right,
than
right,
than a real burger, especially with the avocado flavor or avocado oil and Beyond Meat. It really tastes, and then you air fry it. You don't fry it; you air fry it.
right, right.
Beat the fat. It's great. It's great for it. But I thought I was getting a bargain. They were going to sell $5 for like a packet of six. I thought, oh, that's a. It turned out they had the sign in the wrong place, and they meant the corn dogs. I said, I don't
Uh,
want corn dogs. And I was loading up on this like it was. Remember that show, Supermarket Sweep? I was loading up. I was loading up in my cart, like, oh man, I'm going to get these Beyond Burgers. Oh, yeah, that was for the corn dogs. Oh, put them back. We'll just take one. So it's starting to hurt. You're starting to feel it in the Trump economy. And then the news today, Trump is going tariff crazy again, right?
hmm hmm
And they're saying, that idea of having $3,000 iPhones, that's he's going after Apple. He wants made in the USA
and
iPhone.
Tim was on the podium when he was swearing in.
Yeah.
So that's what you get, Timmy.
Yeah, I know. It's like but look, here's how you justify a $3,000 iPhone. You say, well, most people are using phones instead of laptops. They're using phones instead of the standard kind of computer, and because a phone is now, especially with the smaller chips and all that, it is a powerful computer.
hmm
So they say, yeah, so here's your $3,000 iPhone, and then you
Nah,
have
you
Trump
know
to
what?
blame for that.
iPhone and Apple have lost a lot of their cachet,
Oh
and it
yeah,
and it started with the failures, in my opinion, the shortcomings of their laptops and
yeah,
their shortcomings of their pads. You can get other brands, particularly Dell's and Lenovo and all that,
yeah,
that perform better than almost all of the Apple products, and you get them for less. So they've been losing cachet for a while, and
yeah.
and and I never understood it. For me, it was always a pragmatic choice. Okay, and
It's the
yeah,
ease. The idea that you can take it out of your box and you don't have as much bloatware. Look, because I went Apple first years ago in the '80s, and then because of the compatibility issues, I went with PC, and I was a PC user until about maybe 6, 7 years ago, and only because the iPhone brought me in.
right,
Actually, more like 2007.
sure,
That's a ways. That 2000 the iPhone 4. That's what got me into the iPhone, you know,
sure,
environment. And then just recently, I got an iPad. Love the iPad, and I don't even use the Lenovo. But the thing is, the touchscreen. The touchscreen was everything, and you can't get a touchscreen with Apple except on the iPad.
right,
But the Lenovo is great, and I use that anyway.
yep,
Lenovo is made in China, so there's going to be tariffs on that.
yep.
And
I need the new one, but I'm holding off.
yeah, but the tariffs and the big question now, Trump was saying to Walmart, "Well, Walmart, you better eat the tariffs." And now people are understanding. Oh, I guess we really understand that the countries don't pay the tariffs; the companies do, and the companies pass it on to the consumers. So, see,
Yeah,
C from the country to the company to the consumer. The final C
yep.
is what who
Well,
gets
see,
screwed.
I think some of the commentators
Mm.
and not neutral journalists, as well as the Democrats, of course,
Mhm.
Democratic leaning liberals, right, have said it hasn't hit yet. It hasn't completely hit yet because the consumer has not felt the greatest amount of
Oh yeah,
adverse consequence. And I've been saying that every Friday that I've been on with you,
yeah.
is that it hasn't hit yet. And months ago I said it'll be June.
Dan,
So
why is it that? Because I got that feeling when I was at the comedy club on Wednesday, and I was telling him about the passage of the big beautiful bill,
Bill, the
probably by
big
1
big
o'clock in the
ugly.
morning,
Mhm.
and and everyone is sort of like, and all the stuff that's happening, since January, from January to now, it's been about 4 months. Here we are, May 23rd, and a lot has happened. And some people, I mean, there have been people protesting, but not. I mean, they protest once, and then it just becomes inconvenient, and then they go along. And I think that's the American way, right? It's too inconvenient to protest, too inconvenient to get riled up, I guess.
Well,
Why does it take so? The question is, why is it taking so long to get people
okay. You want
radicalized about
I can give you the fancified political science response,
it? Please, please.
and it is that ba- con- political beings, that means people behaving in political ways,
Mhm.
tend to be naturally conservative. And now, that does not mean that they like Trump and that they like the Republican Party. To be traditionally conservative, okay, in the basic political sense, is that people await to see the proximity of the harm.
Ah,
They have
to them, right?
yes,
Here's the
they
harm
have to
here.
see the proximity of the harm.
Yeah, here's your fist, but my face is out here.
Yeah,
So
the
I don't.
closer that fist gets, the
Oh,
more aware they begin to become. Unfortunately,
yeah.
they get hit, and that's when they suddenly realize that I got hit.
I've been through. All
I
right, so
mean,
I'm
that
thinking
that was coming, and I
the
didn't do anything about it.
so you're saying the fist, the political fists, objects are closer than they appear. This is gonna get you.
They're it's completely predictable. It's complete what the outcome is going to be unless you move or black is completely predictable.
So
But
here
the
come here.
people,
Yeah.
the natural tendency of political beings is to think conservatively. They have to have an actual demonstration of harm. They have to suffer a harm. That's what it comes down to.
Hey, look, that's the way it is in the court of law. Can't sue unless there's a harm. Is there been an injury?
You can there are exceptions. Yeah, you're right.
But
Generally speaking,
basically,
you cannot say I anticipate the likelihood of a great harm. Okay, and those will usually be dismissed as nobody's been hurt. Okay,
yeah,
but if you can show that likelihood is great and it's happened to somebody else, if you could show the pattern, okay, and you can see that your pattern of facts, right, is
mhm,
just like this other pattern,
yeah.
and it's likely to occur. Some courts will say, okay, at least a ti, a temporary injunction, right?
And that's what we're seeing now. Every time that Trump is
Is
like
tis?
he's
Yes.
got that fist and he's going to come up, and you're thinking, oh, it's not hitting me, and it's actually it's
Well,
hitting you.
that's what the state lawsuits are about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But see, they're showing actual damage at this point. They when they filed, it was an anticipatory filing. But
Yeah,
as they filed, people actually were losing their jobs. And so one of the arguments being made by the states who are suing Trump and the Trump administration is that all of the firing of federal workers, these federal workers are all over the country. They're
yeah,
not they're not just sitting in Washington D.C. They're in federal offices all over the country, and so firing them affects the quality of life directly for residents of our state. And if our state residents are harmed, okay, then we have an action against the federal government, and that's exactly what's going on. States have police power. That's the interest and obligation to protect the health, safety, and well-being, right, of their residents. That's what it is.
Yeah, and so, but now we're seeing Trump and the Fed saying, "Hey, look, all this stuff that we've taken on, we want to push it on the states,"
Yes.
and that's like to circumvent all the talk, because the states.
Oh, and some of them set up the beautiful states' rights argument, right? The one
Oh yeah,
that they used for generations to prevent the expansion of civil rights, for example.
yeah.
Okay, and
Well,
that was their mode of resistance, and now they're using it as a rationale for
yeah,
getting rid of federal projects, programs, and things that are now seen as traditional governmental services, including things like Medicare,
Medicare. Well,
Social Security.
to cut Medicaid, not many people have long term care. And the people who can ill afford long term care are the people who need it. And that's poor people. The rich, they don't need it, they've got enough money. But if you cut Medicaid, you're cutting long term care, you're cutting care for older people in nursing homes
And kids,
and
kids,
kids. And this is the shame.
kids, and people with disabilities. You can, those are the three groups that are going to be most injured by their cuts of Medicaid.
And this is the real sad thing about the Trump administration, because it is making sure that people know that in America you better be rich, you better be wealthy, you better.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with you 1,000%. It's very difficult now to even be upper middle class.
Oh yeah,
So
well, upper
any of
middle
the classes
class.
that are lower, any of the classes that are lower than the absolute top 2% or so,
Yeah,
people who are making more than $400, $400,000 a year, right?
yeah. It is obscene to think that $400,000 is barely upper middle class.
Yeah.
You are middle class in America if you're making $400,000.
Oh, you're well into the at least the middle of the upper middle, okay? But the thing is, it all comes down to what state you live in, what city you live in,
Oh
and
yeah,
all the rest of that. Comes to whatever the land values are. Remember when we were talking about people abandoning California? There were people
yeah,
saying, "Oh no, we're losing." The upper crust. They're all leaving. They're going to other states. And I said, "Fine, enjoy the culture wherever the hell it is you go." And I'm
right.
not just talking about enjoy the food, food
Yeah,
culture or whether or not they have a ballet.
yeah.
I'm talking about the lack of diversity, right?
Yeah. Or the political culture or the yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
look, let's name
What
a
what
couple,
is the political culture of Texas and Louisiana,
or
right?
Mississippi or Alabama. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I love the Delta. Yeah,
How
oh yeah,
about Florida? What's the
I love
political culture of Florida for
I,
hell?
look,
For,
I love Florida too. I
you do, huh?
well, I mean, the center of the state isn't bad. Like from Orlando to Daytona, maybe up to Gainesville, and the inside. But now you go south, the closer you get to Trump and Mar-a-Lago,
Right.
not so great.
Miami.
Yeah,
What I call it, your Amy.
you're
Not
Miami. Yeah,
Miami.
and Miami used to be much more blue. It's now pretty red, and there are parts of Florida that I I want to like. But then all it takes is you read the news, you see who's leading Miami, you see where all the Trumpers are from, from Pam Bondi, Marco Rubio, Rick Scott. You say, oh my God, I can't live in Florida. Can't live. I mean, you're kind
Political
of
culture.
stuck.
Political culture.
You're stuck in California, but California, fortunately, is a big, beautiful state and diverse enough. But like I said,
Well, even Oregon and everything except Eastern Washington, right?
yeah,
State has gotten bluer.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you know,
And even though the beginnings of Oregon and Washington were very, very red.
yes, and anti-California too. Remember when
Oh
they
yeah,
said we want to stop the people in Portland and the suburbs were saying we gotta stop the Californication of
yeah,
they developed the word Californication.
yeah, yeah. Well, look, I mean, that was the original, white man's retreat.
Yeah,
Washington, Oregon, and it
yeah.
was in the Constitution. It's in the state.
Skinhead City. Portland was all around. Portland was Skinhead City, man.
Yeah, and so, but it's sort of funny now that it has this sort of progressive thing. But who knows? Who knows? I look, the Trump bill. The only good thing about the small, ugly, sadistic bill is that as it goes to the Senate, it's going to go through changes, and it does go to the Senate. The Republicans haven't won by passing it on to the Senate. But here's an ironic thing, and you tell me if this is wishful thinking, that by passing this, the Republicans have essentially lost the House, enabling the House now to begin impeachment proceedings against the current president, the third impeachment proceeding, which may be a nice so long farewell gift, parting gift, as he ends his tenure in this term. What do you think? Is that a possibility?
Yeah. Uh, okay. I It is wishful thinking, but I'm right there with you. Let me just say, I'm wishing the same thing. The problem that I have is the Democrats are such dorks right now.
They're very dorky. They're very dorky.
They really. It's not just that they can't get their act together. They have got really weak leadership.
Yeah.
They have got really weak leadership, and they're still thinking as though all you got to do is prove to the American people that Trump and the Republicans are wrong on the
Dan,
issues.
Dan,
And
what happened? What happened to logic, Dan?
that's not it.
What
That's not
happened to
it.
logic? What happened to logic?
That's not it. They should be telling the American public, here's how we got here. It's called corruption. And that corruption was aided by a Supreme Court that said it's really cool for corporations to express their political free speech by funding people with black money. Okay, that
dark
foreign
money.
investors can now blatantly favor the political direction taken by this president and his family and his friends. Okay, by buying their meme coin, right?
And we saw that last night.
You have to just be right down there and saying this is freaking corruption. Do you get it? Do you see it? Do you understand the consequences? And then you have to talk about the international consequences. Okay? We are, whether or not Americans believe it, we are internationally, globally interdependent. We are interdependent. And what Trump is doing is destroying our best relationships with our best allies. There it is.
And, you're right. And we had the Trump meme coin dinner, the cryptocurrency dinner last night in Washington.
Yeah, where Mr. Sun, who wouldn't come here because he was afraid of being arrested,
right,
is now welcomed at a very special dinner.
Because he paid the price. And this is legal out front bribery.
Yes,
right?
It is.
It
is in your face corruption. And what is this thing? What is his argument? It's his personal time.
Personal time.
Wait a minute. President's got personal time, man.
Yeah, because on the one hand, he's president out in public, but when he's in his personal time, he's a crook. He's a criminal. He's a corrupt criminal hitting a criminal enterprise.
This is good. This is unofficial activity. That's what he's trying to say. It's unofficial activity, and therefore I am subject. You know what? If that's true, that he got no immunity for this activity. Okay?
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
remember that? Okay, yeah. Only official governmental actions are immune. Okay, and so if he's going to say this is my personal time and it ain't governmental action, then he's subject. Okay, so your wishful thinking is he could be impeached. To pick something. I mean, there's at least 17 things that he could be impeached for. That any single action would be impeachable for any other president, and this country sits there and tolerates it.
Dan, as far as Trump is concerned, corruption is just he's a hobbyist. He's a hobbyist. He's not. This is not his. He corruption. No, 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 no. In private, in his public life, he's president. He
Yeah,
wants to have
yeah.
the big Flag Day parade. On his birthday. But but in private, that's where it's like he's into crime novels and
Well,
corruption.
right now I'm not laughing at Trump because Trump's getting away with it. I'm laughing at the American public. I'm
Well,
laughing at I'm laughing. The American public is allowing the Republican Party and causing to do what they're doing and causing me doubts about whether or not the Democrats can get over. I don't think there's any guarantee that they're going to win in
Dan,
in November 26th, man.
that's such an important point because I remember the day that Trump won. A friend of mine from back east called me and said, "God, Emil, I'm sorry. I thought we were better than this."
I remember people saying that and me throwing stuff at the TV.
Because it really is something. Who do you blame? You got to blame the Americans. Want this? The Americans
They
aspire.
wanted it. They
Yes,
wanted it. They believed that the guy could lower prices. As soon as you get me in, I'm going to lower price.
The Americans.
You know what Jefferson and Adams had in common? They said the Americans don't understand they don't understand currency. They said the failure to understand coin. Okay.
Well,
they didn't mean to be able to just understand what a penny's value was.
They're understanding now. They're getting rid of the penny. They're getting rid of the penny. But what's going on with Trump though is sad because the Americans aspire to corruption.
Yeah.
We aspire to criminality.
Why? But why?
Because we can get away with it. Because the president gets away with it. We're going to get away with it. If he gets away with it, we want to. That's the Trump way. And this is global.
You're talking about the people who during his first run said things like when they're the person on the street got interviewed, they'd say, "We want a businessman in that position. We want a businessman for president."
We want a businessman criminal. A businessman criminal, because that's trickle down, because then we'll get the same benefits that he does. We'll get off scot-free. Bribery, corruption out in the open. Why not? That's the way of the world. And literally that's the way of the world because, in all those foreign countries, you grease a palm, you look the other way. It's seen as, oh, that's okay. You can do that. But not in America. America was always
one of the arguments that Trump and the Republicans made is that these people are turning this country into a third world country. If you don't vote me in, you won't have a country anymore, right?
Well, he's turning it into a third world country all on his own. Donald Trump, third world country.
Yeah, well, what he's trying to do is turn us back into a first world country. He wants the exclusivity, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, he wants new Native Americans and new slaves.
Yeah, there you go.
And because he's going to make the white people, make America white again, right? That's the whole South African thing. I mean, a lot of people have commented on.
I can feel the resistance meter.
Well,
rising because a lot of our audience is going to say, "No, now they're going extreme."
No.
It's built into the freaking Constitution. How many times have I have to say that?
Yeah, well,
the Constitution is based on race. The Constitution has in and of itself racial categories. Okay, You got white people, men particularly, right?
Yeah.
White men, right? Native Americans called Indians, okay, and everybody else, and everybody else, right? Was slaves, man.
And right now we don't have people. We don't have enough white people. We don't have enough white. That's why we got to.
I hope these Boers, the incoming Boer population, I hope they reproduce heavily.
That's it. It's because they got the 14th Amendment behind them. 14th Amendment, birthright citizenship.
Yeah, they're giving a grub stake. They're getting a little, stipend. They're getting a little stipend to get started, man. They're probably going to even give them homes,
Yeah. Well, someone commented that, Emil, there are farmers being killed, but I think it's like 7 last year. It's a very small number. And someone said, and I said, what I balk at is Trump using the term genocide,
Oh, yeah,
because
absolutely.
yeah, you can, and all murder is bad.
It's not happening in Gaza, but it's
Yeah,
happening in South Africa.
yeah, that is the bad thing. That it's not genocide. He's calling it genocide.
It's not
Of course,
happening
like
in
you said,
Gaza. It's not happening in Ukraine.
yeah,
Okay, but
and
uh, you know, it's happening in South Sudan and it's happening in South Africa. Okay,
yeah,
but in Sudan, it's against black people, so it's okay. But in South Africa, it's against white people, so it's not okay.
and even though in South Africa, it's true there have been some killings, but it's like less than 9, which
Yeah.
is like 7. And my line is there are more dead people in the starting lineup of the Oakland A's. There are farmers
Oh,
who've been
oh,
killed.
no, man. No, no. Okay.
Farmers who've been
I'm
killed.
not with him on that one, okay?
Okay, well,
I'm not gonna wear that one, you
it
know.
was a mix. It was a mixed A's Giants crowd I was talking to. All right, so Dan, South Africa, it's bad news, and I don't.
Well,
I
it's
think.
bad news because it's entirely fake. I mean, it's another concoction that he wants to listen to. Did you see still pictures or any of the video of Musk's face
No,
when
I did.
when
I
oh,
was he like
he was
lit up?
smiling, he was beaming
Yeah,
when,
because he's
when they were
manipulating the
showing
press.
funeral procession of black people, black women, right,
Yeah.
who had been killed, and saying that they were white. You know that
Oh,
this is thousands of white people,
yeah. Yeah.
and
It
Musk
was.
is smiling away.
This is
And
Trump's
Marco was
payback.
saying, "Yeah, this is
It's,
happening."
it's Trump's payback to Musk, right? Because Musk is on his way out. He doesn't want him to. Trump doesn't want
Nah,
to
Musk
stay
is not far enough on his way out. I want
immediately.
a complete cancellation of SpaceX contracts,
Oh,
okay, and all of the other contracts that this guy holds, okay.
that would be good. That would be good.
You know,
That I mean,
that's one of my goals. You think the Democrats are strong enough to do that? Huh? Do you think
uh,
they'll do that? Okay. Or why do people ask why and how Republicans wanted to trade, right? All of the cuts to social services, all of them, okay? Everything, okay? In favor of two things. Increased military budget, right? And taxation, reduced taxation, extension of the 2017 tax, right, reduction, as well as more reduction for the top 0.5%. Okay, is that what the hell is that motivation? And the answer is really simple: contractors within red states, contractors that supply materials for the military. That's the reason. Okay. So it's not going to go to the people in the field. It's not going to go to better training because they're against DEI, right?
yeah.
Okay. Which includes better training.
Mhm.
Yeah. It doesn't just mean we're going to hire more transgender people. Okay. That's
Oh,
not what it's about.
trans out. Trans is out.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
no, I'm saying the DEI was not about just hiring more transgender people or
yeah.
recruiting transgender people. Yeah,
Wait,
people who are transgender are out, or
yeah.
they're being forced out. Yeah,
Well, now that we've talked about DEI, or you mentioned DEI, let's get into how 5 years after George Floyd, how before when George Floyd, when that happened, we thought, oh, we had crossed into the promised land. We're going to get everything we wanted. We're going to get justice. We're going to get police reform. We're
yeah,
going
that's the biggie.
and now the
The
Justice
biggie was
Department.
prosecutions, DOJ prosecuting police, okay, because states prosecutors were biased, right? And they weren't going up against local and state prosecutors were biased, and they weren't going after police. So the DOJ was really important in carrying out the pressure, right? The pressure for police reform. So that is not only that is being reversed or at least
Yeah.
discounted, right, and discontinued. It's gotten worse than that. They're actually saying that any DEI education, right, that would help
Oh yeah.
to what can I say? Not only do police reform in the sense of them not committing so much violence, right, and killing of unarmed people and all that, but a reform in real terms of the police public relationship, right?
Mm.
That's out too, and
Yeah.
and so
And,
so
and you know,
this is craziness, right?
you know who's bringing it? The former Bay Area lawyer Harmeet Dillon, Republican, Bay Area
Yeah,
Republican, who's
yeah,
now heading up civil rights in quotes
that's
at
right.
at the DOJ. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like everything is literally turned on its. Another example of turned on its head.
Well, as long as they can get people of color to occupy these positions with
Right,
those kinds of values and willingness to do the Trump thing,
right.
they're going to use them, and
And
they're all full of them. And you notice there's a pattern. There's a certain ethnic group.
oh yeah, they're Asians, specifically Indian, South
Yep.
Asians. There's Harmeet Dillon. There's
Yeah.
Patel, Cash Patel. But look, there are, you know, you got Clarence Thomas. That's not really an administrative position or administration position, but essentially it is, right? You can't do anything without Clarence Thomas. You know, he's your big leverage point on the Supreme Court. But what happened to?
You're discounting the white man. You're discounting Alito.
Oh yeah, I don't mean to, but I'm talking about people of color.
Oh,
But
okay, that's cool.
but where are the people of color like Marco Rubio? Okay, but where are the blacks? I mean,
Yeah,
what happened to um, Scott? Right?
Rick.
Not
No,
Rick
not
Scott.
Rick Swipe. What's his name?
No, you know the guy
Yeah,
from
I know
South
who you're
Carolina.
talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, Tim
the
Scott. Tim Scott.
Tim was yeah.
I mean, where's Tim Scott? Maybe because he wants to preserve some of his blackness. He wants to preserve some of his integrity and not
I
totally
think I
sell out.
think I think he may have hit the line. I think he may have hit the, or I should say I think he may have hit the wall. That there's just so much that's
Yeah,
going on that he can't tolerate at this point. He was having trouble even during the campaign.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
he was having trouble justifying the campaign positions on a lot of issues.
well, you got Tim Scott. You got where's Nikki Haley? Nikki, you know,
She definitely
she
having trouble during the
fizzled out. She
campaign.
fizzled out.
Yeah.
But there are replacements, and now even what's his name? The progress Ro Khanna is going a little blue MAGA, a little bit, becoming
Blue
less.
MAGA?
And no, Ro Khanna is going blue MAGA
Huh.
as a.
Okay.
That's what I read.
Okay. Wait. Describe.
Well, meaning that that it's. I think he's moving away from his progressive. You know, he was out there being progressive leader. Now, not so much. I don't know. I'm just seeing people move to the right to
No,
try to,
yeah, he's definitely moving towards the center. Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
trying to be more. Well, it's this. This is the thing about politics. Moving toward the center is not necessarily a bad thing unless you sell yourself as a leftist, and then you see how long for how long.
Well, the guy that's taking a lot of flack for that is Newsom.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
Well,
and
that's the
and
thing.
all he did was do a couple of blog spots with featured right wingers, including Bannon.
But he's
And
also
I didn't think that was necessarily a bad thing. I think I mentioned that while I was in undergrad, one of the most popular professors on campus was Theodore Keller, Ted Keller,
oh yeah,
and he invited Nazis onto the campus to speak. And it wasn't because he was favoring them; it was because he wanted students to test their own ability to argue with this man. Okay, and but they were met with protests the same way that when right wingers in more recent history, within the last 10 years, right, were invited to speak at Berkeley by the Republican
oh
students,
yeah. Hey, I
and
don't.
and there were major demonstrations against them, and they destroyed property. That
Yeah,
was the Black Bloc came out. I want to
yeah.
know who those people are.
I don't mind. I don't mind speakers and engaging with speakers. I like that.
Yeah.
But what I mind with Newsom is his stand on homelessness
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
is so right wing. That's a policy.
yeah.
And
But it
that
it had its effect though. I mean, even our mayor to in San Jose
yeah.
has taken a much more stringent position on how to deal with the homeless.
Yeah.
Just in the past few weeks.
Yeah, I just think that I don't know where Newsom is really now anymore, and but you know, regardless of whether or not he's been given a fair play in the media, his name is being bandied about and not in a good way. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I don't
I
know if it's
agree.
going to be fair
I
to
think
him.
he's getting a lot of crit. And I don't necessarily think it's fair crit, but
Yeah,
it is clearly a change, right?
yeah.
I mean,
All
it's a
right.
long way from we're gonna acknowledge gay marriage, whether
Yeah.
you like it or not. Remember that statement?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Well, that was a that was a Donald Trump line too. Whether
Right,
you like it or not,
right.
on everything. He was gonna, despite how he feels about women, he says, I'm gonna do something for the women, whether they like it or not.
I'm gonna protect women, and he got cheered.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, but tell me about the pendulum swing with George Floyd, because it did look like we were moving toward a direction where everyone who was maybe progressive, maybe to the left, thought,
Yeah, this
"Oh, we're gonna we're through a threshold. We're in a world where we're in power, and we're gonna get some results. We're gonna get some answers." And now we're going back. It's kind of
yeah,
it's
I don't
depressing.
yeah, I don't know if it's a pendulum swing. I think the right is trying to swing the pendulum. I think what we have is the what people see is the Democratic Party retreat, and the confusion about what to do,
Yeah,
and what issues to stand on, what principles to stand on. I think that also has an effect on even the George, as you put it, the George Floyd progress.
yeah,
Um, uh, people people already know that it's a problem. So it's not, and the seriousness of the problem is made very clear not only by Mr. Floyd's circumstance, right, and but also by what 5 or 6 other people who within that same year
mm,
died at the hands of the police,
yeah.
sometimes in prison. Like Ms. Bland
Oh yeah,
dying in
yeah.
prison, and it was a minor traffic offense. I mean, why did she even get put in jail for that? Why was she even held for that? I mean, I was imagining myself going through one of the conservative Northern California counties and getting pulled over and potentially being held in jail
Yeah,
temporarily, right? Or at least you hope it's temporary, and
yeah.
then I'd have to call in and get a habeas corpus argument. No, I'm serious. You'd have to go that far to protect your interest. You'd have to immediately go for habeas corpus.
Yeah.
You don't have any right. You may have a right to give me a citation, but you don't have any right to hold me indefinitely in freaking jail.
It's funny you mentioned habeas corpus. Christy Nome misquoted habeas corpus, saying,
Yeah, it's
it's
the
Trump's
power
right
of the
to
president.
deport.
Yeah.
It's Trump's right to deport.
It's
Oh
the
no, no,
power of the
that's
president. It's just I have to stop you right there, because that is wrong.
habeas corpus. It's locking him up and throwing away the keys, not
Oh man,
deporting
yeah,
him.
yeah, but she looks cute being stupid.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. We have a level of
She's
stupidity
she
that
is well
is,
dressed stupid.
and
Did you
and
see Bondi the other day when she came out and she started saying we're gonna enforce the law to the full extent, against this man, this murderer, and all that stuff. And I said, did you notice that she's wearing a man's suit top in her?
I didn't see
No,
that.
she's wearing a man's suit top and it's covering up overly, red, white, and blue, overly patriotic, casual
Uh,
clothing underneath. Right, so she got a real quick. Give me that suit. Put that thing on to cover up her otherwise hyper patriotic clothing underneath, man. But
yeah.
yeah, she was
I'm
just
telling you,
she's a real that woman hypocrisy, man. I mean, you want to see the depth of hypocrisy? That's it.
Yeah,
That's it right there. Everybody else is consistent, right? But her change from being a prosecutor with great rep, right,
yeah.
to being this
Well,
absolute supplicant, and
well,
liar,
she's. This is why she got hired, because if you get, she would never get picked by anyone else, but she gets picked. She gets the white affirmative action, and she is beholden to Trump. And she, this is the deal with the devil. This is the deal with the devil for her, and it's sad because she wasn't a bad, uh, you know, state attorney general. She wasn't a bad prosecutor, but at this level, she is every anything that Trump wants, and that's the sad thing. That it's not about justice; it's about Trump, and she she sold herself. She sold herself. So, Dan, I want to talk about, we were talking about diversity. I was filling out my census form, and it's for the American Community Survey,
Okay.
and I almost didn't do it, but I figured, oh, but we rely on this information. I'm going to fill it out. So I filled it out, and it is so uh, nosy about everything. Where do you, how much do you make? Where did you make it? Are you mentally stable? I mean, it goes beyond what ethnicity are you, or what race are you? It just, I almost didn't do it. I almost didn't fill, but you're required by law to fill it out. The census, or the American, in the off years, the American Consumer Survey, which I relied on a lot as a reporter. But have you noticed that they have they aren't really pushing filling it out, because I think that Trump, it's weird. I
They
think that
don't want
Trump,
the data. They
yeah,
don't want the data.
they don't want to know, but they have the data, so you got to be worried. I mean, this is the thing that I was thinking as I was filling it out. They don't want to know, they don't want the data, but it's required by law, so we're filling it out. Given all the Doge nonsense and Elon Musk nonsense, you're worried about how the data will be misused.
That's it.
And then the final thing is, all this stuff in government makes you mistrust that it will be handled with care. That was my biggest,
They want
they
to use it. Look, they want to use it as a weapon, and they don't want other people to be able to use it a weapon against them. So that's it. They want to control it as their weapon. Okay, so
well,
that means denying access to everybody else. Okay, but they want to collect the data. That's the trick.
yeah, I started feeling like an undocumented immigrant, thinking this is why
Well, you already
undocumented.
look like one.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. This
You're
is
welcome.
why
You're welcome.
this is why undocumented immigrants don't want to fill out the census, because they think, oh, I'm gonna give up all my information. They're gonna come after me. They're gonna share this, and they will. I
Yes,
mean,
they
they
will.
say they won't, but they will.
Well, they already
So
started going for IRS stuff, right? So
yeah, and they start showing up at, your citizenship, ceremony. They start your citizenship ceremony, or the, uh, it's not an interrogation, but the interview, which might as well be an interrogation. But
and they're at customs.
yeah,
They're
that's
hanging
it.
out at customs, and
So,
in greater numbers, and they're stopping people and
yeah,
interrogating more people, even if they're just coming back from a vacation.
and
So
so, they're after low hanging fruit. That's where the lowest hanging will be. And I felt bad that I was being cautious, but I filled it out. I filled it out anyway, and we'll see what happens. I mean, that I believe in the American Community Survey, because it gives the most information if you want to know about, how many Filipinos live here, and how many, but it's all based on what you say. So a lot of people can lie about how much they make, how much their house is worth. They can just lie, or about their race. Like, for example, I didn't lie, but I like to say that I am Aspanic. That's my line. And I've been using that for like the last 20 years. I'm Hispanic, some combination of Filipino Hispanic, not Hispanic, or not white Hispanic. Anyway,
Yeah.
I filled it out before the deadline they gave me. I hope it's useful to somebody, and only the good people.
Yeah.
So did you?
We were going to talk about Memorial Day, right?
Oh yeah, Memorial Day. It's Memorial Day coming up. You, I mean, the Filipinos are a special group in that they are one. I mean, the army, the military is totally segregated, so they had to form Filipino units so that Filipinos could fight in World War II.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit more specific than that. What happened was because Filipinos did not have citizen status, okay, but they were legally present as aliens, okay, legally present aliens called nationals, right? It was the specific term that was used to describe Filipino status at the time.
Colonized.
They weren't subject. They weren't subject to the draft, right? And they couldn't volunteer for U.S. military. So two things happened. Some Filipinos were heading for Canada because they were going to volunteer to fight the war with in the Canadian military. And the other thing was that a movement started here in Northern California, and it was picked up by a New York congressperson as well. He was Italian American, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, there was a movement here from Northern California pushing on the military and MacArthur, who was familiar with Filipinos and in fact had spent some of his childhood and adolescence in the Philippines because his father was the first governor general of the Philippines. He was
Right.
both a military governor general and then he became a civil governor general as well. So MacArthur pressed for Filipinos to be able to join the military, and there was a specific executive order by Roosevelt to allow that. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's how the first and second regiments were formed. Originally, there was a first regiment, and then so many Filipinos volunteered to get into that regiment that they started a second regiment, and they were even talking about a third. Okay,
But
uh,
they could only join those two regiments. They couldn't be in the regular army.
they could they could volunteer for other areas too. There were people who
Oh,
went to Europe. I think Peter Bacio's uncle.
yeah.
I remember seeing him in a photograph of him standing on the wing of a Mustang. P-38. No, that was a P-38's a Lightning. He was stood on the wing a P-51, I guess, Mustang in Europe, and so they could join that. They could join the Navy. They
Yeah.
had already been in the Navy, but
Right.
they had been joining as early as like 1906.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The first and second infantry, Filipino
yes,
infantry. I mean, there are other Asian groups, like the Chinese had their group,
yes, they did.
and the
And obviously the Japanese Americans had the 442.
yeah, and that's one of the most heralded. They've
Yeah,
got
and they went to Europe. Yeah.
yeah, and then but the first and second important for Filipinos, and so Memorial Day is important for Filipino Americans, and so you're going
Especially
to
the Second
be
World War generation and their progeny, their kids.
yeah. I always feel like my father because he was I think he was 4F because of his asthma. He couldn't serve, but he ultimately did get citizenship, not for by being in the army.
Well, and the fact that he was able to get citizenship was partially because of again the political activism of people who were veterans of the first and second.
Yeah,
They were pushing. They were granted citizenship simply because they served.
right.
Okay, so as they were mustering out, they were also given the opportunity to swear in as American citizens, thus bypassing the 5 year requirement for naturalization. Right,
Yeah,
and then they argued a group of those veterans argued that all Filipinos should be allowed to become citizens through the naturalization process. And within about a year, I think it was in 1946, after the war was over, they actually got that right.
yeah. I remember. Well, my dad came as a colonized Filipino national,
Yeah.
but an American national, as they called him. But I remember he was not a citizen for the longest time, but he really prized that. He wasn't able to go to war, but the citizenship was important, and along with citizenship came the right to vote, and
Yep.
he
Yep.
loved to vote just once, but he loved to vote just
Right.
one at a time, but he loved to vote. So
Yeah.
that's
My parents were very zealous voters.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, if you lived that life as a Filipino who came from the Philippines, like your dad, like my dad, mom, that was valued, and that was a sign that you were part of this society.
Yeah. No,
And
and they were pretty much exemplars of the generation.
yeah,
You know.
a lot of people take that.
The other thing that I think people discount is the GI benefits that were
Oh
realized
yeah. Oh, I don't
by
discount that.
Filipinos.
I don't discount that because we didn't get them.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I know. It
And we
wasn't that
know how
you
important it was.
discounted. It wasn't that you discounted. I think that not enough Filipinos of current generations
Oh yeah.
appreciate that. Okay,
Yeah.
that was really an important thing. The other thing was, along with the one of the GI benefits was 10% credit in addition to your actual score on the civil service exam.
Ooh, yeah. That's good.
So the GI Bill actually enabled, for the first time,
Mhm,
people of color, and particularly veterans of color,
mhm.
to participate directly with the civil service system. And so a lot of Filipinos, now the reason I raise that is because of the attack that's hidden within the big ugly bill, right, against civil service,
Oh yeah.
against current workers, with the cutbacks, and against future workers as well. Okay, there's an extortional measure within the big ugly bill. Okay,
Yeah.
what we call the big ugly bill, right? That says two things. One, if you sign up and you want benefits, okay, including the right to argue whether or not you have been wrongly terminated, or
Mm.
you have been the victim, for example, of sexual discrimination or racial discrimination, you have to pay an additional 5%
Mm.
of your the cost of your benefits. They pay, I think, 4 or 4.5% now. It may be some really crazy figure like 4.4% now. And this is the share responsibility, right, of the employee
Yeah.
and the employer. So the federal government puts in for your retirement, right, and your medical benefits, and then you're supposed to pay for a portion of that.
Yeah. Sure.
This bill says if you want to protect those rights, you want to enjoy those rights, you got to pay an additional 5%. So
Uh,
now essentially they're being told it's 9%, almost 10% of your salary or your wages, right? That you have to pay in to enjoy those rights. Okay. So the alternative is that you sign up for full pay, okay, but you sign off on all of those rights. You waive those rights, but you get full pay.
uh,
That is what new hires are going to be faced with.
well, see, there's all sorts of little twists like that. How to make a bill, how to make law, like on the state and local taxes, like for the income, the mortgage income deduction.
Right, right.
Like it's based on like I think 300,000 or something like that, and the big thing is it depends on if you itemize your deductions or if you take the standard deduction. If you take the standard deduction, it's usually pretty good compared to
Yeah,
all
it's
the
not bad.
receipts. Yeah, you get all the receipts, you put it together. Hey, look, I did it all for the first time. I got all the receipts in here, and it turns out it's less than the standard deduction. You're going to take the standard deduction.
Right.
So a lot of people are going to be that way, so they're not going to be hurt or helped. But the people who will be helped or hurt, it all depends on if you itemize. And
That's
if you
right.
itemize, that's going to be the key, and that's why it's going to be an important thing.
And whether or not it's beneficial for you to itemize is also a function of how much money you make.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so it's not worth it to itemize if you're, let's say, you're under $70,000, $60,000 a year. It's
yeah,
not, what are you going to itemize?
yeah.
Okay, So it's really valuable if you to itemize if you earn at least 200,000, right?
Or have a business.
Well, and that's what I tell students. If you want maximum tax deductions, right? Run a business. And I
Yeah.
said you can even run it badly.
Well,
you know,
except you can't keep losing money because they want you to
yeah,
make the government wants you
they
to
want
make
to see you making money at least after 2 years. That's right.
anyway. All right. So one thing we kind of touched on, and that is, Harvard got dumped on by Trump, and there was a
And they're fighting back.
and they're fighting back, and a judge stopped it. And this is the pattern: Trump does something unlawful, a district judge then comes back and says, Trump, you're bad, or we're not going to allow you to do that for now. Here's a temporary, restraining thing, and so Harvard filed to stop Trump. They won, so good for now. But
Which one
I
are we talking about? Are we talking about the budget cut, the federal monies being cut,
no,
or
no,
are we
no.
talking about the ban on foreign students?
I'm talking about the second one, the ban on foreign
Oh,
students.
foreign students. Okay.
Yeah, which is what the judge ruled today. He stopped. He stopped Christian.
TI. You got an injunction. Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically, you can't do that.
yeah. So Harvard is okay for now, but I got a note from some people. I mean, there's some student organizations where there are international students who they don't know if they're coming back next year. They don't know what they're going to do. So my question is, you're the former professor.
Yep.
I mean, number one, why is he doing this? Why is he attacking foreign students, knowing that it's going to raise the ire, not just among the students, but the foreign countries, the university. What is Trump's goal here by side? Just putting more pressure on Harvard?
It's just an extension of America first. When
Yeah,
they say, you said earlier, MAGA means make America white again,
yeah,
and it was never white. It was never white. It was just that all of the non-white populations, all of the people of color were suppressed and oppressed. Okay, so but the reality is the society was never white. It was
yeah,
white only in terms of the people who carried the power to act on their social position, entirely based on social position, regardless of wealth, right? If
yeah,
you're, it was race. Okay. So this is completely consistent with that. The thing that's wrong-headed about it is that once again, they're saying the Boers are welcome, right?
yeah,
who are, by the way, noticeably white,
yeah,
and the foreign students are not. And so this is really stupid. I mean, does he know that a lot of the people who are in his administration, right, who are people of color, are the sons and daughters of immigrants, and in several instances are themselves first generation immigrants?
yeah,
Okay, that's and where did they go to school? A lot of them went to the Ivy League schools, right?
yeah. Well,
Okay.
this is a way to, I guess there's an appeal of people to dump on Harvard, and yet one of the things about immigrants and one of the things about people of color is that they have done more to democratize Harvard, to make Harvard not Democrat, but make Harvard more diverse, make Harvard less
And it's
less
not
elite.
only Harvard. Harvard is our example because of the attack being mounted against it.
Yeah,
Okay, but it's true of all the other institutions as well.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
true of all of the other institutions, including Berkeley, right?
yeah,
And the
yeah,
whole UC system. The CSU system is the biggest college or university system in the world. Okay.
yes,
And
yes,
so this kind of attack, right, is an attack on all of the university systems, public and private. Okay. And the
yeah,
thing that makes it interesting is that he's attacking private institutions that even have a greater ability to protect themselves than public institutions. What
yeah,
what makes us protected, the CSU system and the UC system and the community college system, is we're in California. That's what protects us. That
yeah.
we're in the state of California. Okay.
That that's why you can't leave. Can't, not even for vacation. Or maybe for
Well,
vacation.
well,
I don't
you
know.
know, I
It's hard
hate
to
to say it.
tell.
I hate to say it, but one of the things that I would like to do is on my bucket list is to drive across the country.
You've never done that, Dan?
I've never driven across the whole country. No,
Oh, come on.
not. I've
Really?
never
Really?
driven coast to
All
coast.
right. We got to drive cross country. If it's one of the last things we do, we got
Well, I
because
don't want it to be one of the last.
no,
Don't take it that far.
it's
Yeah,
fine.
I
I've driven cross country at least a dozen times.
okay.
So I know all the
I
good places to eat in 1970. I
yeah,
don't know if they're still there, but
yeah. Well, you know,
yeah,
yes. There's so even in San Francisco, some of our favorite places are closed now.
yeah,
So
I know. But
it's really sad. It's
you've
really
never
sad.
you've never driven cross
I've
country?
never driven across the whole country. I've driven halfway across,
No.
and then on the other side, I've driven north south
All right,
on the East Coast side.
we got to talk about this, and but we probably won't drive my old beat up Alpha Spider, but but I there is one part of the cross country trip I haven't taken, and that's going through like uh, north Idaho.
Sure,
Uh,
we got to be careful.
yeah, I
Remember,
know, but that the Filipino population is huge in North and South Dakota. So if you go through the north and then you come out, you pop out of Chicago and then go down.
yeah,
But I've been through south, 66, middle,
sure.
north is kind of tricky, but that
Yeah,
could be fun. That could be fun.
I've driven north south on both coasts, but I haven't driven any further than I think eastern Nevada
Really?
and maybe western Idaho.
Ah,
That's as far east as I've gone from the west coast.
you haven't been through Wyoming and Nebraska and Iowa. You haven't
Yeah,
lived.
I
Lived.
kind of want to do Wyoming.
Yeah.
I don't give two hoots about Nebraska.
Ah,
I got friends in the Dakotas, Native
yeah.
American friends in the Dakotas.
Oh, and
So
then you can't forget Missouri. Missouri.
Missouri, I pronounce it
I lived
Missouri.
there. I lived in Missouri for a couple
Yeah,
for
Saint. You lived in St. Louis, Missouri.
I did. But
Yeah.
it could have been worse. It was a no, I mean St. Louis, the scene of the World's Fair, the 19
Yeah, that's right.
the what is it, 1904? 1904 World's Fair?
Yeah, that's right. Where they had an entire village, an entire barrio of Filipinos who were dressed up as
Right.
loincloth wearing locals.
They had gongs and they had yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You,
yeah, all right. So start thinking. You add this to your bucket list. We'll talk about
yeah,
driving cross country and
yeah.
going to Dogtown, Missouri. They got a place called Dogtown.
What are we talking about? Are we talking about the questionable meat source, or what are we talking about?
Yes. We're talking about they had a place called Dogtown, which is outside of St. Louis, where they housed these people. There were like 1,200 people there, 1,200 Filipinos that they brought in.
I see. Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's a
And they called it Dogtown because the people there, the Filipinos there, were notorious for eating
they
dog.
were supposed to eat dog. That was part of the contract. You're eating dog because people want to see dog.
No
They did.
kidding.
Yeah.
I don't know this.
Oh yeah. Well, that's part of the 1904 lore. That they and then the Filipinos, many of whom could speak English.
Yeah, they were a lot of them were well educated. In
Yeah.
fact, the best educated of them was eligible for a doctorate. You know.
Yeah. Well, the guy I talk about in my show, um, James Robert Amok, he said, well, we don't eat dog. People were getting sick. We don't eat dog all the time. It was like a special thing.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like, and then we got to eat dog all the time. Sometimes we just want pork chop. We just want no. He said sometimes but he said no, you got to eat dog, and it was like a P.T. Barnum kind of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where they like displayed them and showed them and they
Sure.
danced. So
Well, remember the tail thing? Remember the tail thing with the postcard with the tail?
oh yeah.
That was the Seattle. That was the
Oh yeah,
Seattle fair.
they went on tour. they went on tour, and they were in Portland, then
Right.
Seattle. They were all over. Anyway, Dan, I think we have come to a point where
Yeah.
aren't you happy that the Warriors aren't playing anymore?
Because it breaks our heart to see them in such dishevel.
Well, I don't know. They might. Maybe they'll get Giannis. Maybe they'll get it. They need a tall guy. It's ironic. I mean,
That's yeah. Linda, my wife is saying, "Where are the bigs? They don't have enough bigs," and
they
that's
need
true.
they need it. I mean, it is basketball. I know. We're Filipino. We like basketball, but basketball is for tall people. They need some tall people. It
Yeah,
would help.
or you could get a bunch of Peyton thirds, GP the third.
Oh
He,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's got springs, man. When
He's
that
good.
dude jumps at the hoop, his head is above the hoop.
Yeah,
It's
he's.
like he got springs.
I like him. I like him. Or they can get that Chinese woman who balances plates up on the unit. She's got springs too. All right,
Oh man.
all right, Dan. Happy Memorial Day. Oh, San Francisco State is graduating today.
Graduation date, and Darlene Mabalon is Dawn Mabalon's younger sister
Yeah.
is being honored because she has carried on Don's work not only as a historian but as a celebrant of Philippines and Filipino American culture, and so she's getting a much deserved uh, honorific status today, and I wanted to let people know that that was happening.
Oh, great, great. And that happens later today.
Yeah, yeah. It's at Oracle.
Oh, wow, Oracle.
Yep.
And then the giant.
Yeah,
Oh,
we got a deal. I think 2 presidents ago,
yeah.
two SF State presidents ago, a deal was made with the Giants and with Oracle to be able to use Oracle for our graduations. So it's pretty cool.
That's cool.
You
Where do
know?
they put where's the stage? Like at home plate, and then
Yeah, it's around around home plate, and so people all around it, down the first base and third base line.
Oh, that's cool. Cool.
It's pretty cool.
Well, as a former lecturer at San Francisco State, go Gators, I guess.
Gators,
Go,
Gators. Yep,
okay.
I'm
All
gonna
right,
be
Dan.
watching it. They do a live streaming.
I feel oh, good, cool, cool.
Yeah,
All right. Well, happy graduation
thank
day
you for that. Yeah.
and happy Memorial Day.
Oh, let me also say, Bindlestiff has got a piece that was written by Alan Manalo,
Yeah.
the famous Alan Sampson Manalo, and his piece, it's opened yesterday,
Oh,
and
what
I
is?
think it shows it's called In Between, but the between is spelled Bituin, so it's one of those double ententes that
Oh,
crosses the language line of Tagalog and English,
ah.
and he shows tonight and tomorrow as well. So
Oh, it
we're
Ben
going to
was
be attending that, and then
great.
we'll be seeing you on the second, dude, at the Marsh.
All right, great.
And
Hey,
we got to get something to eat after.
yeah. All right. Well, listen. Thanks for mentioning that. Give my regards. I mean,
Whoop,
Alan.
I
Alan.
lost you.
Alan is still with us, right? Oop. Yeah. There we are.
Okay,
So
you're back.
Alan's still. It was his wife who passed away, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So is
been a
Alan
couple of
performing?
years.
Is Alan performing it?
Yeah, I think he's in a bit of it. I think it's basically it's like a one man.
But he's not the one man.
He's the one man.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's good.
I think it's pretty much a personal story.
Oh,
So I hope I'm not savaged in this treatment. But anyway, because I go back with Alan a long way.
oh yeah,
When he first transferred to SF State, he was in my Filipino American history class taking Rabid's notes. And
yeah.
so I was curious, why is he taking so heavy notes? So I walked down the aisle to see what he was writing, and he was actually writing some of my punchlines.
Oh, good, good. Well,
Yeah.
well, look, you give me a report. Tell me you know, what he
How it went.
how it went, uh, and give him my regards when you see him. I haven't seen Alan in a year or so, a couple
We should
years.
just get together. So we'll try and put something together so we can all.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't seen
there's
Alan.
Alan and a couple of other people who I think should have been professional comics
Yeah.
that we can get together with. It'd be fun. It would really be fun.
Okay. All
All
right.
right, dude. Thank
Daniel
you.
Phil, happy Memorial Day. There he
Yes.
goes.
Yes.
Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend of the show, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University, Professor Emeritus. Can't say enough about Daniel Phil. You can't. You can't say enough about him. And he knows so much. He knows so much. Dan was talking about Bindlestiff tonight. Check it out. Also, hey, I'm going to be at the Marsh June 2nd. Yeah, short show. Short show. Now, I'm going to be preparing a little bit of the show that I'll be doing in Canada, but it's the working title is Emil Amok 69. But it's about Trumps and popes and ditties, and it should be fun. Marsh, 1062 Valencia Street, SF Marsh, the Monday Night Marsh in San Francisco. Also, hey, I want to give a plug to my friend. There it is. Ishmael Reed. If you check out amok.com, or where is it? The YouTube channel, Emil Amok 1. I do an interview with Ishmael Reed. We talk about a lot of different things and his play, Life Among the Aryans. The Black Repertory Group in Oakland, actually they're in the Oakland-Berkeley line. They are running till June 1st. Check them out, eventbrite.com. If you're seeing the screen, there it is. Check them out. Ishmael Reed's Life Among the Aryans. It predicted the January 6th insurrection, and it's a fun show. So check that out. And then my show, June 2nd, 1062 Valencia Street, SF Marsh. I said working title, Trump's, Popes, and Ditties, but it's part of the Emil Amok 69 show that I'm doing. I'm bringing to all the fringe festivals in Canada. Not all, but a couple fringe festivals in Canada. So there you have it. Thank you. So thank you for listening to this show. Amok.com for information about me. We like to close with a little meditation, a little loving kindness meditation. What do we have if not loving kindness meditation? So, because really, it's what we got, right? It's the important things in life, right? Love, gratitude, kindness, what you share with others. It's not, what you amass materially. It's all these other things, right? That's what's important. And so as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time, Mahal Gita.